We don't see this happen too often in the movie industry, but there is a sequel out there that you all know about, and it's 24 years in the making. It's Gladiator II from Ridley Scott. I've had a chance to see this film, and I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a very fun ride. I've got some things to talk about, though. First of all, I think the casting is pretty damn terrific in this film. Paul Mescal is absolutely an A-lister star out there. There's something so visceral and gritty about him, and the camera is finding his honesty and finding his authenticity. He's not flush with ego. He's not always trying to be in the perfect light and have the perfect facial expressions. There's a kind of an animalistic quality about him, and a perfect casting from Ridley Scott. And I understand that Ridley and Paul Mescal are working on another movie already, so clearly they saw a benefit from working with each other, and Ridley speaks his mind, so he must have Paul Mescal in high esteem. And he earns it in this movie. He is terrific, and of course he had the tall shadow of Russell Crowe to step outside of, because we're all thinking about Russell Crowe. And if anybody doesn't know, Russell Crowe's character Maximus died in the first Gladiator film. And so what they've done is 20 years later, they've picked up with Maximus's son, Lucius, played by Paul Mescal, and they carry on with a brand new story and reintroduce him into Roman life. There are some characters and some actors that come from Gladiator 1 into Gladiator 2. Most notably is Connie Nielsen's Lucilla, who is Lucius's mother, and she does work hard to kind of mesh these two different movies together, these two different stories together. And I didn't see the first Gladiator recently, so a lot of it was kind of a little bit loose in my memory, but there are a few little flashbacks that take us back into the story of the first one, which was welcome, honestly, from me. Maybe not everybody else that wants to see this one. Now, there are a bunch of new characters in this movie, of course. Denzel Washington stands out most notably. He plays a slave owner who also has a stable of gladiators, and he is connected with Lucius and puts him into the ring, and Lucius has to fight for his life in some crazy sequences, some really cool action sequences. And then there are also a pair of emperors, two brothers, played by Joseph Quinn, who's going to be in Fantastic Four, and he's from Stranger Things, and then Fred Hechinger, and he is playing a brother that's a little bit off. There's some kind of twisted stuff with him. He's always got a monkey around him, but they've got an interesting dynamic, and everybody kind of looks at these guys with a little side eye, like, what's up with these two? And so they bring some real color to the screen, and they're very different from Joaquin Phoenix's role in the first Gladiator film. But there are definite echoes all the way through this. We see Lucius become one of the gladiators and rise in popularity and rise in ability, and we see him get challenged with more and more outlandish things. Of course, giant beastly men, and then actual literal beasts come into play, and some of it gets a little cartoonish and over the top, and it sort of veers away from, I think, some of the emotional truth that we might have felt in 2000 when we saw the original Gladiator. It just feels a little hammy, especially in the sort of post-Game of Thrones era, where there was a deconstruction to this sort of fantasy stuff. And I know this is based on history, but we saw a lot of incredible things in Game of Thrones, and they tried to make it work through gritty realism. There are some brutal and violent moments in Gladiator 2 which are quite shocking, but it also moves with a looseness and a campiness. There was this sort of unmistakable vibe of improvisation as some of these scenes play out, especially with Denzel Washington, who seemed to be having a total blast in this film. Now, Pedro Pascal is also in this movie, and it almost feels a little comedic to say that, because he's a kind of an overexposed actor. I love him, like everybody loves Pedro Pascal, but he's in a lot of stuff, and so he kind of stands out because it's like, hey, Pedro Pascal is in this Gladiator movie, and it's not like he's bad, he's good, he's solid, but it did feel like the role could have been another actor and the movie would have got along just fine. And that's not a slight against Pedro Pascal. I'm as much of a fan of him as you are. It's just we're seeing him in a lot of things right now, but kudos to him, because he's great and he deserves the success, and I know it was a long time coming, but he's in everything. So it's interesting, though, that two Fantastic Four stars are in this movie. And the movie is definitely a big punch of escapism. Like, it's a blast to sit there and think about this other life and think about these other priorities that people have. I mean, people gathered in these coliseums to watch two people just hack and slash at each other until they killed each other or one of them died, and it's horrific, But that's what humans did. That was the entertainment. That was the Friday night. Let's go watch something. And they watch two people just go at it. And it's still shocking and it's still crazy to see in 2024. And I guess that's why this is a sequel that we didn't ask for, but it's here. And because it's in Ridley Scott's hands and he clearly cared and clearly wanted to make something that honored the original blockbuster, I think he's come pretty close. I don't think it hits with the same resonance. I think, though, that it is a nice addition to the canon of Gladiator, and who knows if they continue on from here. I imagine that Paramount Pictures would like to continue on from here if this one ends up becoming a big blockbuster. We saw that happen with Top Gun Maverick, and I think this one's going to be pretty well received. There are some end of the empire kind of statements and sentiments that are in this film that feel especially on the nose at this current moment in time. And I'm wondering if people are going to be picking up on that as they're sitting in their comfy seats eating their popcorn, watching gladiators stab each other and hack and slash at each other. But you know what you're paying for if you buy a ticket to this one. Gladiator 2 is pretty cool. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.